Coming up next on America's Hope, two people who have lost loved ones share their stories of grief and how they've turned their pain into power to help others through their mourning process. That's next on America's Hope. Good evening, this is America's Hope. Welcome to tonight's program. I'm Kelly Wright. Tonight we want to talk to you about grieving. It's reality. If you go back to 9/11, for those of us who were alive and witnessed the atrocity of 9/11, the terrorist attack inflicted upon our country here in New York, Washington, D.C., Shanksville, Pennsylvania, it impacted us and affected us nationwide and also globally. So many of us were left to grieve, losing loved ones in that attack, or just having empathy for others because of what happened. It stole something from us. And yes, it's true that even today we still suffer from the vestiges of 9/11, and we still suffer today from the pain that's very palpable when we saw the death of George Floyd, or when we see death in the form of mass shootings. And we collectively grieve. We gather around each other to have candlelight vigils, to go to churches and mosques and synagogues to pray for each other, to come together as a nation at a time of mourning, praying that we can one day return to a time of joy. And so tonight we're going to introduce you to two people as they share their personal stories of how they turned their tragedy into triumph, their pain into power, and their ability to turn those stories of grieving around to help people like you and I, to help us understand that while we have a collective sadness, we also have the opportunity to help each other and to embrace each other, whether it's getting through a disease or an unexpected death. It may not sound like a hopeful topic, but as you watch their stories tonight, you'll see that hope prevails, even in the midst of sorrow. That's our subject tonight on America's Hope. Let's get right to it. And I'm joined now by Gala Bynum, founder and chair of We Will Survive Cancer. Now, that's a very important organization because many of us do face cancer and many of us know people who have been impacted by it. And Gala, what you're doing in this area is so important. You are from the D.C. metro area, and of course, there's the National Institutes of Health there. There are other organizations that are involved in cancer research. Tell me about your role in terms of We Survive Cancer.
We Will Survive Cancer was actually inspired by my daughter-in-law who had breast cancer. She was diagnosed late, and she lived actually 5.5 years. But in those 5.5 years that she lived, she became very, very active in making sure that young women didn't just take their doctor's first opinion and that they kept going back and forth to find out. She raised over $125,000 for Komen Austin in the 5.5 years that she lived. And instead of going into the oh woe is me mode, she jumped in and did everything. She was quite an inspiration. So she came here for a fundraiser and met some of my friends here. And at that point in 2009, she was actually the spokesperson for Komen Austin because of all the work that she had done. So what we did was my friends were so inspired by her that we actually ended up forming We Will Survive Cancer. I think there were 9 of us that were original founders. And so we're not really looking for a cure because there are great organizations that are well funded, like NIH, like the American Cancer Society, that do that work. But what we found out is that families are often neglected. The patient's taken care of, but the family isn't. And so our hope is to actually inspire people to have hope, because a cure is three-fourths of your attitude, I believe.
It's so true. I have to, in full confession and disclosure, my grandmother, who I dearly loved, battled breast cancer for 12 years before
Wow.
leaving this world at the age of 82. And then my mother, who conquered and overcame pancreatic cancer, unfortunately succumbed to lung cancer 5 years after that unfortunate situation. So cancer has impacted my family, not to mention close friends and loved ones who have also dealt with this really insidious disease that still attacks us. So your organization really deals with the family and actually telling the family there is hope. And I like the fact that you're not
Yes,
really looking for a
and
cure, but getting hope.
well, we found that it was an area that was kind of neglected. My daughter-in-law had amazing support from my son, her and her family. She actually never went through treatment without having somebody with her. But what I found out from the experience is that so many young women, their husbands leave them because it's not what he signed up for. They've lost their breasts, their fingernails, their eyelashes, their eyebrows. And, it's a devastating situation to find yourself in. In her early treatment, she was actually driving women home after she'd spent 5.5 hours with her own chemo treatment. So I'd never heard of anything like that, and had never really been around cancer until being with her and seeing the way that she responded.
It actually it shows her courage, her resolve, and becoming a champion of hope while she was facing a very difficult situation for her own life. And you talk about
Right.
unselfishness there and how she was able to serve others. There's a lot of good value that we all can learn from your daughter-in-law's ability to heroically and boldly face cancer, realizing that it could result in her leaving and departing this earth sooner than she would have liked. But she leaves a legacy, right?
She does. She should have been diagnosed when she was pregnant with my grandson, but she was not diagnosed until 13 months later. Her doctor kept telling her she was too young, and that the techs would laugh. And she finally convinced him to give her a prescription for a mammogram. And by the time she was diagnosed, she was advanced stage 3. So Reed was 13 months old, and she passed away when he was 6. So in his little life, his mom was sick, almost the entire time. She did go through remission, and 2 weeks before she was re-diagnosed, she did a triathlon, which
Wow.
is totally amazing. She was an amazing young woman.
So talk to me about this because you've explained what you've gone through and what you've witnessed personally within your family. Why do we have doctors, especially given the fact that we have so much available to women and men to detect certain cancers ahead of time? And we know that early treatment is always better. Why do we have doctors who are not always aware of a woman telling a doctor what she knows or what she suspects is going wrong with her body?
It's a mystery. It's a terrible, terrible situation. This was in 2004, and I don't know. I mean, they lived in the Austin, Texas area. My son is still in Texas. and he's remarried. And my grandson is now 19 years old. So it's hard to imagine though how that could happen. 2004, it's not that long ago, really. You would think that a doctor would be more caring, and at least follow through. If somebody asked for a mammogram, that they would, at least give them that prescription to do it.
And when you created We Will Survive Cancer, as you talked about, you wanted to bring this to families. And I want to go to a point you made earlier about cancer being something that husbands, spouses can't always survive. Husbands leaving their wives because, like you said, they're losing their hair, their nails. That's something that we don't often think about when it comes to someone fighting cancer. You don't expect their closest support group to leave them. In that vein, where does your organization, We Will Survive Cancer, come in to help people in that kind of situation where their support group has left and they're really kind of isolated and on their own?
Well, we try to do everything that we can to, make people aware of all the situations. I mean, it was something that I didn't know anything about when I actually got started in this, and we actually work with organizations like Life with Cancer, Virginia Oncology, Howard University Cancer Center. They've vetted the people, and we work through them. We have a situation that one of our members, our creative director, Josie Valdez, goes into Howard University Cancer Center when women are having their mammographies, and does makeovers for them to make them feel more beautiful. Uh, Josie has a glam squad that she's had forever, and we're very lucky that she absolutely joined our board because it's a whole different aspect that we can offer people as cancer patients. But I think that it's hard to understand. But the woman has to is the person going through the cancer is the one that I think really has to feel good about herself.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And that's why I like the fact that you talked about the glam squad that goes to Howard University and, of course, to other places where you're operating with We Will Survive Cancer. Because if a woman feels good about herself while she's facing the sinister disease of cancer, which can ravage the body, it's important for her to be able to look in the mirror and still see that she has
Oh,
value,
yeah.
not just by the way she looks, but by who she is and how she holds on to this hope that prevails. Cancer is such a difficult disease and it still affects Americans, even though we have government leaders, the president and other members of Congress saying we must find a cure for cancer. Until that happens, organizations like yours, Gala, you're the underpinning and the foundation for families to understand what's at stake here, and how when you face life and death situations, how important it is to keep filling people with knowledge and inspiration and information that can prolong their life.
One of the things that I became aware of, actually, I just published the second book, volume two of Don't Waste My Cancer. Michelle, my daughter in law, coined these two phrases: don't waste my cancer and eat life with a big spoon, which are beautiful marketing tools that I told her, I said, any agency would have paid you millions of dollars for these slogans. But so the original book is her story, and it's a compilation of stories of different women and men, and actually in the first book we had a dog that went through cancer. So it's from their perspective and everybody's got a different story, but to let people know that there's not just one way to go through cancer. And hopefully there'll be an inspiration from having read these, these stories of people.
Yeah, so you've collected these stories, and I love the title, Don't Waste My Cancer, spoken by someone who was dealing with cancer. So in the
Right.
title, what did she mean by making that statement, and what do you mean by writing this book to people who are still facing and battling cancer?
Uh, the meaning to me, and I think the meaning to her was, yes, we all go through trials and tribulations, and actually, it could be don't waste my whatever it is, my divorce. It could be don't waste my life, but you have to come over and above the trauma that you're going through, and try to make it so that people, understand that there's hope, that there's more going on. And regardless of how much time you have left in life, you have to have hope. And that's what I like about your program.
Oh, thank you, Gala. I'm talking to Gala Bynum, chair of We Will Survive Cancer. Back in a moment with a final word from Gala about what you and I can do for people around us who we may not suspect they may have cancer and we not know it. How can we treat them better? Back in a moment. Welcome back to the program. I'm talking to Gala Bynum, who is the chair of We Will Survive Cancer. And for those of you who have been watching the previous segment with Gala, first of all, I want to thank you for the sensitivity and love that you're showing for Michelle, your daughter-in-law, who you love so dearly. And of course, she's no longer here among us, but spiritually she's here with us and still putting out a message of hope to people who are battling cancer, the very thing that she succumbed to. You have to enjoy, like what she has been able to leave in terms of her legacy of hope for so many other people who have survived cancer or still dealing with
Hmm.
it. So your organization, We Will Survive Cancer.
So, we actually don't just limit our organization to breast cancer. It's cancer across the board because there are, one of my best friends was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2020, and he's still here. And he's the Serbian person that I was talking about. That he was just honored in Serbia, actually, for all the great works that he's done in life. And we every year we do for 14 years we've been doing a Christmas program called Making Spirits Bright, and we go to the different organizations that we work with and ask them for the wish lists from their families that would not be able to have cancer. I'm sorry, Christmas, because of the high, how much money that they have to spend for treatment and everything. So the first year we were able to do two different families, and last year I think we did about 300. And in the past, we've had the support of Macy's. We don't have that this year, but I'm very hopeful that that we will have support from people that pay attention. Right now, we have a polo uh, operation that is coming around, and one of our supporters, Tariq Salahi, and his polo group are playing in September in Middleburg. So they've been big supporters of ours for years.
You know, what you're doing is really just a wonderful service to the families of people, and as well as the people who are battling cancer. This is so needed. And other groups, of course, are out there, and I hope many people will follow the example that you've just set in stone here through We Will Survive Cancer, reaching out to be that support group, that wellness group that says, hey, we know what you're going through. We know that money is tight because of how expensive it is to actually provide cancer care. But let us give you some relief with the little things that we do. The little things really add up, though, to provide that hope
Hmm.
that your daughter-in-law wanted to give to others, even while she was battling cancer, still serving others because she understood the value of hope. I've got to ask you, based on everything that you've learned, what is your hope for America with regard to fighting cancer and other maladies that we contend with politically, physically, spiritually? What's your hope for America?
Oh, that's a very deep question that I think about all the time because uh, people need to find love. They need to go back and look at their Christian principles that seem to have disappeared, the courtesy that no longer exists between people. I mean, I could spend 2 hours with you on this subject because it's so near and dear to my heart. I'm I grew up in an era that life was good. I didn't grow up in racial diversity. I mean in racial conflict. I didn't know anything about that. And it seems to me like it's gotten to be terrible in the last couple of years, more than I ever, knew about. So I'm from Oklahoma, and I grew up with a family that basically settled the West, and I said they didn't do it in a mask. My grandfather was a Texas Ranger in 1876, and so loving and just being there for people, and you know if you feel insulted, you don't have to insult the person back. You can try to be kind to them because you don't know what they're going through. Everybody's
Yeah.
going through something right now that, the economy is a mess for some people. It's just difficult. It's a difficult time that we're living in, and I feel so sorry for children.
Yeah. Well said, Gayla. I agree with you and concur with you on your value of hope for America. Certainly, we need to follow it, everything you just talked about, how we can come together and realize you never know what someone is going through, which is why I love hosting this show and the fact that we put it on every time that we have an opportunity to give people not an ounce, but a full measure of hope, because they're bombarded
Hmm.
with so many things and so many issues. So we wanted to provide people with something that uplifts them. And yet there is the pain of cancer. There is the reality of life and death. And yet there's
Right.
the heroism and the courage that your Michelle displayed while she was battling cancer. I remember how my mother continued to reach out to help others while she was battling cancer, and my grandmother doing the same thing. Incredible women doing remarkable things, or I should say ordinary people doing extraordinary deeds. Certainly your Michelle did that, and you're doing that as the founder and chair of We Will Survive Cancer. If I didn't say thank you before, I'm saying thank you now. And please understand
Well,
that here on America's Hope, we are a friend of hope, and we're a friend of We Will Survive Cancer. So,
well,
I,
thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity, and good luck. This is a marvelous thing that you're doing.
well, we thank God for that, and we thank you for you being you, and together we will survive cancer. Thanks, Gala Bynum.
Thank you.
Back with more in just a moment. And welcome to America's Hope. I'm Kelly Wright. And tonight we're taking on a very serious tone right now because we're talking about grief. So many Americans are grief stricken and they're trying to deal with losing a loved one. And let me ask you, America, what's it like for you? What do you go through when you're in pain and when you're heartbroken because you've lost the love of your life? It could be your parent, it could be your spouse, it could be your child. It could be through a set of circumstances that were beyond your control. Most notably, that happens. Whatever the circumstances, America is grieving for the loss of loved ones, natural disasters, and just common things that happen. There is a transition. Life ultimately ends with our departing this world. The next guest I'm going to introduce you to is a man acquainted with grief. but passing on the pain of grief to empower people who are grieving throughout America. His name is Joseph Anthony Silva. And Joe, welcome to the program. I know you as Joe Silva, and I'm glad you could join us. And
Thank you, Kelly.
it was 2 years ago that you truly lost the love of your life, and you are writing a book about that. It's in order to help other people going through similar circumstances. Let's start there. What happened 2 years ago in July 19th?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, please.
Yeah. Well, Kelly, thanks so much. You're a dear friend, and I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share this. Really trying to find purpose through the pain. Yes, back on July 19th of 2021, I was away on a business trip. I was going to be returning on July 20th after being away for 2 weeks. But on July 19th, at about 9 p.m. in the evening, I got a phone call from my two daughters. I have two daughters and a son, and it was a three-way call. They were calling me, and my oldest daughter, Holly, was very flustered, and I was wondering what was going on. And they relayed to me that mommy had just been unconscious. She was not responsive. The ambulance was there, and they were trying to revive her. And long story short, she ended up being diagnosed with a brain aneurysm, and that was on July 19th of 2021. And then she proceeded to be in the hospital for the next 19 days, and she entered into heaven on August 7th of 2021. So,
you know, Joe, you're away from home. I think you tell the story about the last time you spoke to Marianne and how touching it was, and how, as you look back, you wish you had spent a little bit more time with her. But the fact of the matter is, this was a woman you cherished, and you celebrated her life as she was living. Talk to me about the relationship that you and Marianne shared, and the children that you together helped raise to become the incredible children that they are.
yeah, I went to Liberty University on a football scholarship. I was actually offered another scholarship to another school, and in the last minute, I decided not to accept that scholarship because it was too far away from home. It was out in Colorado. And I went to my coach and I went to my parents. I'm like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to accept that scholarship. They're like, you're not going to accept the scholarship? What are you talking about? I'm like, it's just too far away from home. Is there anything else that we can look into? So my high school football coach said, it's really last minute. I'm not sure what we're going to be able to do for you, but let's see. And he came back to me a few days later and said, there's a small little college down in Lynchburg, Virginia called Liberty Baptist College. And I'm very friendly with the coach, Morgan Howe. And I'm going to send your highlight reel. And we had the discussion about you. And long story short with that, they ended up offering me a scholarship to come play at Liberty University back in 1985. And I remember I was 17 years old, turning 18 that October. So I was one of those young freshmen. And I remember my coach saying to me, he said, Joe, no matter what happens, whether you play football or not, for the 4 years or not, at Liberty University, you're going to meet your wife at this school. Yeah. So now I'm 17 years old. I'm like, all right, coach, whatever, I'm not thinking about getting married at the time. But long story short, I ended up meeting my wife at Liberty University. Liberty Baptist College in 1985 became Liberty University, and now is, I think, the largest Christian university in the world. And I met her, and we ended up getting married in 1992. We got engaged in 1990 in Central Park. She's from Lynchburg, Virginia. I'm a Jersey boy, just outside New York City. And we got engaged in Central Park in January of 1992. Started dating in 1990, got engaged in 92, and married in November of 1992. So we waited about 4 years before having kids. Then we ended up having Holly in 1996. Then we had Ashley in 1999, and Joey was born in December of 2001. So three beautiful children. I was working in New York City, and eventually got a job in the medical industry as well. I did that for about 24 years. And yeah, and it was just a fabulous life, godly woman. Marianne was just everything.
You and Marianne were actually the epitome of the American dream. Two people coming together, finding love, finding faith and hope and love together, and sharing this life. So, you know, as you fast forward, you were married how long? 20 plus years.
We were married, it would have been 29 years that November 14th of 90. We got married in 92, so 2021 would have been 29 years. And she entered into heaven that August, so just shy of 29 years married.
Wow. You know, Joe, I know you personally, and I have always looked up to you as being this man of devout faith, a man of strong convictions, and a man concerned about America, a man who loves people regardless of where they're from, regardless of the political stripes or their racial DNA. You've always been loving God, loving people everywhere you go. And you, along with Marianne, have always been able to handle anything that's come your way. She, from my understanding and looking at your life, has always been your rock.
Oh, yeah.
When that was stripped away from you unexpectedly, your first reaction was what?
I think, like most people, angry. I was very upset. I really was. I was shocked, number one, because let me just backtrack. You know, Marianne and I, we had a Christ-centered relationship. She came from a very strong upbringing of faith. Both of her parents were professors at Liberty University, so I had to be on my guard, you know, and be very careful, I should say, you know, because she was brought up in a very godly family, as was I. So when we got married, we knew that Christ had to be the center of our relationship, and he was, and he always will be in my life. And she was just somebody who truly was my biggest cheerleader, my biggest supporter. You know, with her, she was always that rock. She was always that supporter. So of course, when this happened, I was in shock, and I was running on adrenaline, I guess. You know, I had family and friends around me. I was going nonstop. There was so much support around me. But then slowly, people started, you know, going back home. Her family went back down to Virginia. I started getting less phone calls, and there were less people coming to the home. So there were plenty of times when I would walk into my bedroom to go to bed, and I would look at that empty bed.
Hmm.
And yeah, I would be upset. And I would say, God, why? Why? Why now? My family, my kids, forget about me. My kids need her. You know, this was the time that my older daughters, you know, Holly and Ashley, and my son, they're all older, they're adult children. I always look at them as my kids, but they're young adults. But this is the time that Holly and Ashley, you know, mom becomes their best friend, and weddings and all these things that are going to be coming up. Joey, my son Joey, Marianne was his best friend. He loved Marianne, and she knew exactly how to care for him and nurture him. So I would sit there laying in my bed late at night saying, God, why? Why is this happening at this time? And the grief, the anger, the why questions. On August 7th, when she entered into heaven, okay, it was my worst day because I lost my best friend. I lost my wife, the mother of my children, who I was with for over 30 years, married for almost 29. But it was her greatest day. She entered into paradise.
Joe, you're now reaching out to people wherever, however, and whomever to let them know about your life with Marianne, and that while mourning is something that we all go through, you're helping to teach others who are going through the pain of grief to understand that there is a joy that can come in the aftermath of losing a loved one.
Yeah, it's easy, and I can understand how you can be in despair and you can be upset and angry, but you have to find the silver lining, the things that I see, like in my children. I see my wife. And each of my children, their personalities, what she instilled in them, it comes out. So she's living through my children. And I look at people and I hear their stories, the people that reach out to me and say, Joe, we followed this story and we watched what you were doing and what your family was doing, how you were seeking the Lord. And I've been away from God. I haven't been following God, but what you went through, it's caused me to come back to the Lord. I've had people tell me they've given their life to the Lord. They've rededicated their life to the Lord. They're spending more time with their spouses, with their children, seeking the Lord, spending time with family and friends, understanding that, we're not guaranteed tomorrow. So yeah, I can share the story. I can share the story of hope, and that there are people out there who need friends and family, and they need, above all, they need the Lord. And that's why, again, I'm so involved with legacy-minded men, because back in 2008, when I met Joe Pellegrino, I wanted to do more for men, because our men, especially our men in this world, are under attack. But being involved with legacy-minded men, Joe Pellegrino, we're all about, engaging, equipping, encouraging men to build a Christ-centered legacy. And that's why it's important to have resources and tools around you to help you be all that you can be for the Lord.
We're back with more of America's Hope in just a moment. And I remember when I launched this show, some people were asking me, is this a religious show? I said, no, it's a show about hope. And you can't always talk about hope without talking about faith. So I love the fact that people are able to come on here and express their faith. This is America, where you have the right to assemble, you have the right of free speech, and you have the right to believe as you choose to believe. Your belief system is universal, though. Legacy-minded men. You're talking about the marriage that you have with Marianne, and the fact that you were filling the role as a good husband, a good father. Many of us in terms of our manhood, we lose sight of how precious a gift marriage is. And the splintering of the families in America is causing America to lose some of its foundational principles. Before I let you go, I want to talk to you about legacy-minded men, and how all men in America, especially in homes where fathers are no longer there because of divorce or because of separation or because of abandonment, talk to us men about what we can do to bring hope back to the home, and thereby giving hope to America's greatest resource, and that's our children.
Every day, just watch the news. As you know, Kelly, watch the news. So much despair, so much going on, because this is a world that is fallen, and there's sin in this world. And things like brain aneurysms and car accidents and cancer are going to happen. But above all, the most important thing that you as a man can do is to lead and direct your children and your family to Christ. Because at the end of the day, in this case, Marianne lived 52, almost 53 years. She would have been 53 in December of 2021. She passed and went into heaven in August. But she is in heaven because she accepted Christ as her Lord and personal Savior. So we as men, we got to stay encouraged. We have to build each other up. And that's why, like an organization like Legacy Minded Men.
You represent Marianne quite well, my friend, and you represent Liberty University well. But you also have put out a challenge to men. And while other men may not be of like-minded faith, they can zero in on the essence of hope. And that's important to glean from this conversation. And they can be there for their children when there's pain that hits the family, whether it's the death of a spouse or a mother or a loved one. There is hope.
I want to say to the men who may not have the faith that you and I share, don't isolate yourself. Do not spend time by yourself isolated. Yeah, you can get away, clear your head, but what I mean by that is don't put yourself in a place to where you're not surrounding yourself with good people that love you and care for you, because there's a lot of bad people out there. Don't go and turn to things that are going to bring you down. Surround yourself with the right people, because it's very easy to get into that mind where I'm no good, life is no good, and you're isolated. And when you're by yourself, that's when the attacks occur and all that stuff mentally. I mean, mental, what you think, so important. So surround yourself. My challenge is to you that may not have this relationship with Jesus Christ. Okay, one day I hope that you do. And I'd love to have you reach out to me. I'd love to share what it means to me to be a Christian. But if you don't decide to make that choice right now, surround yourself with really good people that are going to lift you up and support you. Don't be alone. Don't be this island by yourself.
I appreciate you, Joe. Much love
Kelly,
to you and your family.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kelly. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you too, my friend. I really want to thank our guests tonight for appearing on our program to talk about their own personal experiences through grieving. And we've seen through their stories that out of their personal pain, they have created power to go out and help others, to comfort each other, to encourage others who are going through their own unfortunate circumstance of mourning and grieving. It is a way of life, but they have rightly and aptly pointed to hope, a prevailing hope that helps us all heal and return to a joy and a sense of comfort and ease to carry on the legacies of the loved ones that have departed. And so, America, from their stories, may we be ignited and united to keep spreading the message of hope and love and freedom and peace. Until next time, America, keep hope alive. Good night.
In my America, my children are black and white, one shade of beautiful, so precious in God's sight. In my America, all lives matter. So let's stop the chatter that tears us apart. We are a family, together you and me, agreeing to disagree, but still live in harmony. The dream that gives hope to us is as strong as it ever was. United we stand, divided we fall. That's my America. In my America, there is no left or right. We're all on common ground. Darkness gives way to light. In my America, you give more than you take. And And when someone has lost their way, you lend them a hand and say, we are a family, together you and me, agreeing to disagree, but still live in harmony. The dream that gives hope to us is as strong as it ever was. United we stand, divided we fall. That's my America. We are brothers. I'm not my brother's killer, but I am your keeper. We are sisters. The greatness of our nation starts in the homes of its people. What's in your house? We are family. Together, you and me, agreeing to disagree, but still live in harmony. The dream that gives hope to us is as strong as it ever was. United we stand, divided we fall. That's my America. United we stand, divided we fall. That's my America. From sea to shining sea, I believe in God, I believe in you, and I believe in we.
Your America and my America.
United.